Welcome to Hannity. And tonight, the Iowa caucuses are less than 24 hours away, and the final poll out before the caucus goers pick their candidate shows it is going to be a tight race for both political parties. On the Republican side, Donald Trump is out in front with 28%, but Ted Cruz is close behind with 23%. Marco Rubio in third with 15%. Now, they're followed by Dr. Ben Carson, Rand Paul, and Chris Christie. As for the Democrats, Hillary Clinton leads Bernie Sanders within the margin of error, 45 to 42%. And as I said, that lead is within that margin. So here with reaction tonight from the Weekly Standard, Fox News contributor Steve Hayes, the editor-in-chief of LifeZette.com, Laura Ingraham, and from the Daily Caller, Fox News contributor Tucker Carlson. Welcome. Happy Sunday to all of you. Laura, I'll start with you. Here's the issue in my mind. All right, they were the most accurate poll 2012. In 2000, 2004, 2012, the polls have been really bad. Now, you have Trump up 5 in this poll. Real Clear Politics average has him up 6. Hillary's up 3. Real Clear Politics average up 3. Do you think this holds? Do you believe these polls?
I mean, if you had a gun to my head right now, I'd say Trump's going to win Iowa. I mean, but do I have any specific information to indicate that? No, but I will say, when you look at the polls, that the Des Moines Register, and of course the new poll that came out today, Franklin Pierce in New Hampshire, there does seem to be some type of momentum for Trump. Now, Cruz, was ahead for a long time, Sean, and I think he did build up an expectation that he was going to win Iowa. It still could go either way. I think it's still going to be very close. But, Marco Rubio has a lot of ground to make up. He's at 15%. Maybe he'll do a little bit better than that. But it's still a Trump-Cruz outsider versus establishment narrative in this race, and I don't see that major narrative changing at all.
Yeah, and really we're talking about two insurgent candidates. Tucker, you've got 9% uncommitted, and you got 30% saying that they can be persuaded to change their vote.
That's
Big
right.
impact, little impact?
Well, potentially, you've seen it in years past. Unlike a conventional election, a caucus contains a portion where people's neighbors make the pitch to them on behalf of candidates. And we've seen, as we did last cycle, where Rick Santorum came from third to first, people change their minds. I think what we can't overemphasize enough is that we could see both parties change dramatically for generations based on the results of Monday's vote. I mean, Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump are both not just making cases on behalf of themselves, but making really detailed and impassioned critiques of their own parties and how those parties need to change. I think we're really seeing a realignment whose parameters are unclear at this point, but it's big. I just think we need to keep that in mind.
I think that's a great point. And Steve, I would say another point to that is, Bernie Sanders, Donald Trump, by far had the biggest crowds. Weather may be a factor, according to some reports. Here's the question, though. Do crowds turn into votes? I would guess they probably do, because people are out in the cold weather for long periods of time for both candidates, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, in many respects, that is the key question to determine the results tomorrow night. I tend to agree with you. I think that they likely will. I think, as we've talked about before, you have people waiting in line for 2 hours to go hear a Donald Trump speech. Some of that may be curiosity, but there's no question that he has an intensity of support that is unmatched by the other candidates that he's facing off. I think the same thing is true with Bernie Sanders, maybe even more true with Bernie Sanders, where Democrats who are Hillary Clinton supporters, many of them, almost feel an obligation to vote for Hillary Clinton or are voting for her for reasons other than policy, other than what is being debated on a substantive level. And Bernie Sanders is making a case that's obviously had quite a bit of appeal to Democrats in Iowa and nationally, his democratic socialist case.
Yeah. Laura, let me ask this, because I think you've been very fair to Donald Trump and Ted Cruz, as I think I have been on this program. If Trump wins and Cruz does not pull it out in Iowa, and people thought going in he'd have an advantage, he's got big leads in New Hampshire and South Carolina. Does he then run the table? Is that the risk if Cruz doesn't win Iowa?
Well, Cruz himself said that in that speech he gave a few days back, and it's hard to see that Cruz could stop him if Trump wins big in Iowa. I mean, bigger than a couple of points. I think it's just going to be hard. I think the idea, though, that the establishment candidate, if it's Rubio, if people start coalescing behind Rubio, the idea that the establishment candidates are just going to like pick up their marbles and go home, I don't see that at all. I think Tucker is exactly right. This is a battle for the future and the soul of the Republican Party. I think that the people who are showing up at that Trump and Cruz rallies, I think they literally believe this might be the last chance to save America. That's how serious they are about this, and I think they're going to show up and vote, and I think they're going to vote, and they're going to say, how dare you question that whether we were going to show up and vote. I think they're mad, but they're devoted. I think devoted to trying to save the country. That's how they see it.
Yeah, I got to be honest, because you talk to them on your radio show every day. I'm talking to them on my show every day. I don't even necessarily believe it's anger as much as righteous indignation. And Tucker, determination. And Tucker, this is, I think, it's kind of amazing to me that the establishment people in Washington don't understand that they've created this insurgency year. Whether people are supporting Trump or Cruz, both are insurgent candidates, and both are hated by the establishment and the elites in Washington. They don't seem to get it.
Well, of course not. These candidates are a reaction to their incompetence and deceit. That's how a lot of their voters feel. These came from a Trump rally about 20 minutes ago, and I was amazed by the pitch he was making, which I hadn't seen before. It was not just based on, I'm going to bring, America back to where it ought to be. He was making the case that only he can win, that all the other candidates are basically rerunning the Romney campaign. They can enlarge the pie, and he can. He was saying this tonight, and who knows if it's true. I am the only one with a shot to take New York because I can bring a ton of Democrats over to my campaign, and the crowd went crazy on that. I'm not endorsing that theory, but I hadn't seen him say that before. I think it's kind of a compelling line of argument.
You know what, though? It actually does make a lot of sense, doesn't it? I mean, Steve Hayes, I know you've not been the biggest Trump supporter, but I could see a state like New York, Pennsylvania, maybe Michigan in play. Why not?
Well, look, it's possible, right? At the beginning of this campaign, Donald Trump had terrible favorables, unfavorables among Republicans, and he has found a way to reverse those. They're better now, though. He's still, in Iowa, it's 50% favorable, 47% unfavorable. The problem, I think, is there was a Washington Post poll out earlier this week that asked people if they'd have anxiety about a Donald Trump presidency, and you had more than 50% say that they would be very anxious about a Donald Trump presidency, and another 25 or so of the ballpark say that they'd be somewhat anxious. That's
I have a panic attack at the thought of Hillary, so I understand and I can relate to that.
Yeah, we're all there.
And 52% actually, 52% in the Gallup poll have an unfavorable view of Hillary. So she's got her own big problems there. I'm not even talking about legal. Laura?
Yeah, she does. She does.
Yeah.
No, I think that's right, and I think that would be the argument that you'd hear from Trump supporters. But let's be clear: he would have a ton of work to do to turn those around if he were going to broaden his appeal and expand the party. I'm skeptical he can do it. Others aren't.
I think look, it's an uphill battle, yeah, for Republicans to be more popular among traditionally non-Republican voters. However, I've been arguing this for many years, Sean. I know you have as well. On two issues, there are amazing opportunities with independent voters and Democrat voters. Immigration and trade. Doesn't mean you don't trade, doesn't mean you don't like immigrants, but it means those two policies have to work for the average working person. If we can lift the middle class up and say, look, we're going to focus on your renewal. We're not going to give you anything, but we're going to give you a fair shake getting a job in this country. If people actually feel like the Republican Party is devoted to those people again, instead of just the people who have done really well, then I think that you could make a lot of progress. Maybe make 10-point progress with those groups.
All right. Final question. We'll go down the line. Tucker, we'll start with you. Who's going to win Iowa tomorrow night? Both sides.
I literally have no idea, so I'm just going to go. The polls have, outside the margin of error, Trump leading by 5 in the latest Des Moines Register poll, so I'm going to go with that. But I could easily be wrong, of course.
What about the Democratic side?
Oh. Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is going to win tomorrow. And the Hillary people are more panicked than you even can imagine. This place is crawling with lobbyists and lawyers from Washington who've been brought in by Hillary. They realize it's a big deal if she loses. They're very worried.
Laura?
I say Trump, Sanders, and lawyers and lobbyists all over Washington, D.C., and the establishment is basically going to be in a major case of the vapors until we get to New Hampshire, and they're going to try to have one more Hail Mary pass. They're going through the change of life, Sean.
I don't think I've heard the vapors in a long time. I don't think I've heard
Sorry, well, pulled that out of my hat.
All right, good job.
Yeah.
Steve Hayes, your predictions for tomorrow.
Yeah, well, I hate to make it 3 for 3, but 11 of the last 12 public polls taken of Iowa voters, Iowa Republicans, had Donald Trump ahead, and in some cases ahead by as many as 11 points. I expect that he will. I expect that a lot of those voters will show up. It may be close, but I think Trump is the likely winner on the Republican side. And I agree with Laura and Tucker. I think if you look at the enthusiasm, you look at the people who are devoted and are almost certain to show up, I think that is what will give Bernie Sanders a win tomorrow night over Hillary Clinton.
There was one interesting part of the Des Moines Register poll. If first-time caucus voters show up for Trump, he would win by 16. So it's going to be interesting to see if they actually show up, if crowds become votes. So, guys, good to see you all. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks,
Sean.